Back on, and former U.S. President and Republican presidential pick Donald Trump has selected Ohio Senator JD Vance as his running mate for the upcoming presidential polls in November. If Trump wins, Vance will be the next Vice President of the United States of America. JD Vance, who's the author of best-selling memoir on what ails the white working class, Hillbilly LG, has an Indian connection. Vance, 39 years old, is married to Indian-American Usha Chilukuri Vance, who traces her origins to Andhra Pradesh in Bharat. Mr. Trump had relatively little personal contact with Vance, but then Vance came to his notice with his presidential campaign and also his presence on Tucker Carlson tonight. The 39-year-old Republican has also a notable personal connection to Bharat through Usha Chilukuri, who is of Indian origin. Usha and Jerry Vance first crossed paths at Yale Law School and later wed in Kentucky in 2014, where a Hindu priest conducted a separate ceremony, as reported by the New York Times. In an interview, Vance attributed his journey of faith to Usha's Hindu beliefs, which played a significant role despite his Catholic upbringing. Sushant Sareen, senior fellow ORF, stays on with us. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, scientist and commentator, with us. Professor Peter Kuznick, Director, Nuclear Studies Institute, American University, is with us. And Amy Tarkanian, former Nevada State GOP chairwoman, is with us. Namaste. Thank you very much for your time. Amy, let me first ask you, choice of JD Vance, did it surprise many, or was he quite obvious?
I think to the devoted MAGA base, he was the exact choice that they were hoping for. I think to those who were maybe on the fence or still in question, they were hoping maybe for somebody like Marco Rubio or even Doug Burgum. So I think it was a little bit of both.
4 decades separate the two. Is that gap going to be quite awning if they were to assume office post the elections?
I think the age gap is welcoming. The fact that you now have completely different generations, where you have one who's more towards the boomer generation and then the millennial. I think the fact that JD, one of the pros is that he does bring youth and vigor. He is energetic, and he also has a young family. And I think that's something that the American people are very welcoming to.
The Indian connection, and Donald Trump has also been trying to woo the Indian American voter base. What's the thought process there? And is that going to make a difference this time?
Well, it's interesting because it won't be the first time that we have somebody with Indian connections. We also had Governor Nikki Haley, we had Governor Bobby Jindal, and so I think the fact that he is married to a woman with Indian connections, of course, it's always welcome. It's a bonus. I don't know if it's going to be the deciding factor, but the fact that you now have 2 white men at the top of the ticket, I think having somebody such as JD's wife is only more than beneficial.
Professor Peter Kuznick, how would you see this? Trump's choice, and do they clearly have the advantage compared to the Democrats between Biden and Kamala Harris?
They clearly do have an advantage at this moment, but there's a long time before this election, and we've seen how quickly things can change. Now, this question of having a wife of Indian ethnicity, certainly he's running against, if the ticket remains the same as it is now, he's running against a woman who's of Indian origin. So that will not be an advantage in that way. What Trump has done is chosen an ideologue who's very much in the MAGA camp. And as Amy was suggesting, he could have broadened his appeal, but instead he seems very confident right now and is doubling down on somebody who thinks along the same lines that he does when it comes to immigration, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to abortion. So the question is this going to widen his appeal, or is it going to just reinforce it with the people he already has on his side? And I think that that's the more likely scenario.
Did his choice surprise you? Because many did not tout him as a front runner, and they didn't think that Trump would go for someone so young.
It didn't surprise me at all. This is a safe choice for Trump. Vance will subordinate himself to Trump, but Vance also is very smart. As Amy says, he's much younger, represents a different generation, and but he's a real ideologue. So there is a potential risk, because if Trump wants to broaden his appeal to more moderate voters, then Vance would not be a smart choice. But Trump is calculating that he already has this election won, and therefore he can go with somebody who's not going to broaden his appeal right now.
So just dig in and just dig deeper into the MAGA, voter base, because he believes he's got a fair share of the moderates. Dr. Ranganathan, your thoughts? JD Vance, the India Connect? Quietly growing Indian influence or the Indian American influence in US politics?
Of Vance, I might not be a fan, but Usha certainly is. I just thought I'll just put that in. No, a couple of things out here. Number one, just the other day, Anand, I remember we were talking about the reason why Trump was shot and an assassination attempt made on him was because in America, people have dehumanized him. And one of the ways by which Trump has been dehumanized is that people start calling him Hitler. And surprise, surprise, the Trump's vice president candidate has called Trump Hitler. So I don't know what to make of that. I think Trump has gone ahead and done what nobody else would have done except Trump. Vance actually called voters as idiots if you were to vote for Trump. He called Trump a Hitler. So, it's entirely unsurprising that Trump has come up with this name. Having said that, I think, they say a week is a long time in politics, and we're certainly talking about a couple of years, if not more. So, yes, Vance can take a U-turn, and he certainly has. But of the issues that I think the professor and Amy mentioned, yes, he is more of a conservative, certainly, than even Trump is. So, correct. I think this going forward augurs well for the quote-unquote Republican vote bank. As far as how good he would be as a partner of Trump, well, if we were to disregard all his statements that he's made on Trump and to look for a fresher beginning, then yes, maybe this is a good team.
But somebody who goes for the kill, somebody who's aggressive, somebody who does not pull his punches. And when you're in the fight, you're in the fight. And after that, it's all forgotten because it's politics. That's how you got to stick up your candidature, and you got to be aggressive. Sometimes leaders like that. They like a certain level of aggression. They cite a certain level of candor and perhaps a demeanor which perhaps looks back and tells them, oh, this is a younger me. Sushant Sareen, is that what's happening? Is Trump looking back and saying, had I been into politics at 39, this is how I would have been? Or is he making very carefully crafted choices? He's giving the cues to the right people at the right time, or the right constituency.
Look, I think in many ways, Trump is a pretty underestimated kind of a guy. I think his presidency wasn't as bad as many people make it out to be. The economy did well. He was able to do something which nobody else had done for 75 years, Abraham Accords. There was a certain amount of, he was a bit erratic. There were a lot of things which, one could say that
he was abrasive
not correct.
in his demeanor. So, and that rubbed a lot of people off, ticked a lot of people off.
Look, maybe that kind of attitude does not stand in international politics, and people are much more sensitive. But if you've lived in America, you've interacted with many Americans, and I'm not talking about the perfumed lot. I'm talking about the normal, ordinary guy. He's very much in your face. He's very blunt, very open. Trump is like that, which is why he has a connect with the people, number one. Number two, look, politics is something in which, for example, Hillary Clinton was taking a lot of pot shots at Barack Obama. Later on, ended up as his Secretary of State. So this kind of stuff happens in politics. So because Vance said something some years back does not mean he cannot evolve and change his mind. Okay. Number three, I really find it strange. I thought this is a malady only in Indian politics, but it seems that, what is cast in India is color in America. Everything is now seen from an ethnicity perspective or a prism, and quite clearly, I don't really think that this is the right way to go about it. We'll look for the best candidate. Frankly, Vance, from whatever little I have seen of him, he's articulate, he's a smart guy, he's articulate, he's practical, he's pragmatic, and he is not a bleeding racist. The very fact that he's married to a lady of Indian origin will tell you that he's not a racist, that he's a devout Catholic but has no problem in living with a wife who's a devout Hindu, also tells you something about the guy. So he's not a lunatic who's out to convert kind of a deal. And from what he has said, frankly speaking, he sounds extremely sensible. Whether people agree with him or not is a different matter, but his take, for example, on the Ukraine war, I think it's a sensible thing he's talking about on a range of other issues. Now, you can keep saying, oh no, America must fight in 50 theaters. But he's giving you the practical thing that, look, if you have a big looming conflict in East Asia, then you need to, settle some of the other conflicts which are raging, whether in the Middle East or in Europe. And other people, your partners out there, need to pitch in much more than what they have done so far. How is that not a sensible thing to say? How is that not a strategic thing to say? So I think he's a smart choice. I think he might be able to bring a certain amount of order to the erraticness of Trump, although nobody can vouch for that. But I think, yes, I think the wind is behind the Republicans right now. But let's wait and see.
Let's wait and watch. But final word from Amy. How did he work this? Because the New York Times has put a very interesting article that he chose to woo those who are backing Trump or those who are Trump's champions rather than Trump himself. How did he do this? And was he smart in the way he approached this?
I'm going to disagree because I think now President Trump is going to have to clean up a mess after some of JD Vance's past statements. And some of them were made not too long ago. And Ukraine was mentioned, and he actually said he doesn't care what happens in Ukraine. And that's unacceptable and a reckless statement in itself. And also, too, the fact that he's now on video in an interview saying that women who are in troublesome marriages, even some that are violent, should stick it out if they have children. That's not going to go over very well with women voters. The fact that he is very pro-life, which is fine, I'm pro-life, but he goes as far as saying abortions should not be allowed with any exception. Abortion is going to be at the top of the ticket across the nation. That's going to cause some problems. So I think also, too, he's going to be the pit bull right now. And President Trump is very smartly listening to his strategists and trying to remain a statesman and remain as calm and change his tone, which is great. And so now JD, though, on the other hand, can come in swinging, and he can be the pit bull for President Trump while he tries to remain, the statesman.
We'll see whether that works with the American voter and that works for the Republicans. I've run out of time, Dr. Ranganathan and Peter Kuznick, but wonderful speaking, and hope we continue these conversations in the run-up to the elections in the U.S. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Winding up the right stand on that note. Namaste.